Here's an idea. Going to see Ender's Game might be a political action. Ender's Game is the story of battle school genius Ender Wiggin and his preternatural strategic abilities. It's a tough, coming-of-age sci-fi novel, and though it takes place in the super future, there's a good many recognizable moments from everyone's childhood. Like that time you broke that kid's arm in Zero G. Memories. The book's author, Orson Scott Card, dreamed up Ender in the 70s, and the book was eventually published in 1985. It became hugely popular and was awarded both the Hugo and Nebula Awards, science fiction writing's two most distinguished honors. For about the last 10 or more years, a movie adaptation has been in production cryostasis, but as of November 1st, Ender's Game, starring Asa Butterfield and Harrison Ford, was finally released. On the one hand, there are many reasons to be very excited about the rendering of this book, a piece of sci-fi canon in modern cinematic glory. But on the other hand, there's a reason to not be excited. Namely, it's Orson Scott Card himself. To describe some of his personal politics as controversial would be a bit of an understatement. In 1990, he said that homosexuality should be illegal, and in 2008 said that it only exists as a result of, quote, a tragic genetic mix-up.
Oh, hell no!
This year, he said that President Obama is, quote, by character and preference a dictator, and in 2007 suggested that there is a media conspiracy to suppress scientific evidence disproving global warming. As you might imagine, this has led a good number of people to consider Ender's Game in a different light. Now, in our Evangelion episode, we talked about the ideas of the author when interpreting a work. There's a lot going on in Ender's Game, and much we could read into, like Ender's Game as Mormon literature, as deification of the young, or a reflection on technology as dangerous abstraction or thief of childhood. But there is no overt anti-queer or problematic political message, insofar as you don't consider, no spoilers, what happens at the end political. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation even reviewed the screenplay and found nothing troubling. Co-star Harrison Ford said that it was, quote, a very impressive act of imagination that Card could predict the internet, that he could predict drone warfare. There is nothing in the film or book addressing his current dispositions or prejudices. However, that doesn't mean that the connection between the movie, Orson Scott Card, who is a producer on it, though the idea he will profit significantly is disputed, links in the doobly-doo, and his politics doesn't leave some people asking if maybe they should use their dollars elsewhere. SkipEndersGame.com, which is maintained by Geeks Out, a queer geek advocacy group, reflects the feelings of a lot of people when they say that Orson Scott Card has every right to express his opinions, but absolutely no right to our money. If you do not support his views or his extreme agenda, do not support them by buying a ticket to Ender's Game. In other words, by supporting the movie, you are supporting Card and implicitly supporting his views. We've seen more than a few examples of this kind of thing this year alone. The CEO of Barilla Pasta recently said that only traditional families should consume his mass-produced unleavened dough shapes. Many bars and patrons are boycotting Russian vodka due to the country's intolerance towards the queer community. Chick-fil-A's CEO recently spoke out against gay marriage, and Jelly Belly's chairman of the board gives to an anti-trans organization. When a fundamental disagreement between producer and consumer arises, it can feel hypocritical to support the continued success of that producer. And since for most people there is no inherent message in jelly beans or pasta, it can be surprising when they are suddenly burdened with one. And weirdly, though we are totally familiar with the idea of media or artworks having an explicit meaning or message, depictions of and reactions to the world are inherently ideological, right? That meaning could absolutely be hijacked by the politics of the creator, like with Mel Gibson or Ezra Pound, and then you're like, ooh, no thanks. Implied here is the idea that those who do not align with your politics should not be allowed success. That even if ticket or admission prices, company or personnel gains do not directly fund aims you don't claim, you should not deign to pay. Which says, really, a fair amount about how we think of our money. It implies that we should or should aim to give money only to things with politics similar to our own, or to things that are smart enough to be without politics. It implies that our dollars are ideological or political upvotes, and that spending is an inherently political action, which, well, it is. It's capital P political when you use that money to support a political party or political cause, but for better or worse, it's lowercase p politics, like the maintenance and distribution of power in basically every other situation in which it's used. It's when a critical mass of people decide that monetary support provides a damaging amount of political support that a boycott can happen. The question then is, how damaging will the political support shown by going to go see Ender's Game really be? Rachel Adeiden, writing for Wired, sees plenty of reason to abstain. She writes that neither fiction nor its creators exist in a vacuum. vacuum, nor is the decision to consume art or support artists morally neutral. Orson Scott Card is monstrously homophobic. He's racist and advocates violence and lobbies against fundamental human rights. In other words, giving any credence or credit to his work could be seen as super problematic. On the other hand, Diane Anderson Minchell, editor-at-large for Advocate.com, says that by not seeing Ender's Game, you might be doing more harm than good. She writes that the makers of the film and its cast and crew, and probably most people involved in the Ender's Game film, hold views contrary to Card's. We shouldn't penalize them for the idiocy of one man who created the source material nearly 3 decades ago, especially given that the message of the film is at such odds with that man's own homophobia. And therein lies the most interesting tidbit. At its heart, and without giving anything away, Ender's Game really is about the dangers of a one-size-fits-all political mentality, of marching in lockstep with the heavily mediated status quo, and of remaining resolutely and purposefully opposed to tolerance, to hearing the other side out. Is it perhaps the best possible outcome if Ender's Game becomes a long-term smash success, confronting millions of people with these very ideas, even if it means we are, in fact, implicitly supporting Card in the process? What do you guys think? Did or will Orson Scott Card's politics factor into your decision to go see Ender's Game? Let us know in the comments, and I'm pretty sure one of the solutions to a puzzle in the Giants drink is to subscribe to Idea Channel. I just died in your arms tonight because you're the Slender Man. Let's see what you guys had to say about him and folklore. Draco Alexander writes basically a term paper in the comments, which is really interesting and calls into question the authenticity or meaningfulness of the internet as a document, and along the way also mentions the SCP Foundation, which is a thing I just found out about and am slowly working my way through. There is a lot there, and yes, it deserved a mention and it's very creepy. To JC19021, no, I blatantly borrowed it from Wheezy Waiter and I sent him $1 every time I use it, so officially licensed, doobly-doo. God. To Fuzunga, I totally forgot about Candlejack and how hilarious it is that when people start talking about him, their sentences just kind of... Mr. Go154 tells us about her favorite creepypasta, which is about the roof jumper, who you can only escape from by going into a small room with no windows. What if you don't have a small room with no windows? There are windows everywhere else. Sophosleif's favorite creepypasta is Ben Drowned in Majora's Mask, which is... Yes, it's about like a haunted cartridge. Highly recommended. There's some creepy YouTube videos. We'll put some links in the doobly-doo. God, Craig is making a mint off of me. To everybody complimenting us on the use of the Wilhelm scream, full credit for that goes to producer Andrew. It was his idea. Totally nailed it. And here he is. Shugo Ibaka's comment about short horror stories makes me wonder if there are short horror vines, which if there aren't, seems like that's an untapped market that someone needs to get on. Fields4242 and a couple other people pointed us towards Herobrine, which is the kind of resident Slender Man from Minecraft, which I had never heard about, and is really interesting and super scary. Thanks for pointing that one out. And finally, to Brian Gray and everybody who participated in whatever it is you call this when this happens. I feel like we don't tell you guys enough that you are the best comment section in all of YouTube, so thank you for making it both fun and educational and actually having awesome conversations and doing fun things like this. I don't know where it ended up, but I'm just gonna guess that I'm not your dog, mate. This week's episode was brought to you by the hard work of these Battle School graduates. We have a subreddit and an IRC, links in the description, and the tweet of the week comes from Chels White, who made ideachannelreads.tumblr.com, which collects all of the books that we have cited, which is super neat and useful. Thanks, Chels.